Everybody, and welcome back to Gridiron Across the U.S. We've been gone for a little while, but today is going to be our recap episode of Week 17 of the NFL. Kevin, how about you explain where we've been the past few days?
So Dom has been in England over for Christmas break, and so we haven't been able to record, and we haven't been keeping up with some of the things we were planning to do. So now we're back. We're headed into the new year, recording this on New Year's Eve, and we're looking ready to go. We're gonna be starting up back with mock draft Mondays and some new segments, maybe like hot take Tuesdays and more stuff like that to look out for in the future. So make sure to follow our Instagram. It's the same name as the podcast if you haven't already, where we will be posting that usually before we talk about it on the podcast. And then just on the podcast episodes, we highlight it a little bit. That will start in the next week. So that's just kind of the fun stuff we're gonna start doing, and we're back finally. I know you missed us, and we're gonna start with reviewing our locks and underdogs of the week. So we actually had a good week this week. I picked the Lions as my lock. They hit. It was a closer game than I expected, but we will take the lock. Dom picked the Bills, blew out the Jets, and our dogs.
They
They
were
may have both missed, but I think they were good picks. The Broncos lost in overtime in a questionable game, and the Packers lost by two. So I think both, even though we missed on them, both those teams came very close and were good picks.
Yep, we did pretty good this week, basically since we've not been doing so good the last few weeks. So hoping to get back on track with that. We're going to start with our first topic, which by the jersey, this is pretty much one of the main focal points of the topic. It's been the receiver class of this year. When I look at the receivers in this class, you see Brock Bowers is basically a receiver at this point. He's over 1,000 yards, and he just broke Puka Nakua's single season reception record for a rookie. I believe he has 108 catches, if I'm not mistaken. And then Malik Neighbors, he had a monster game against the Colts. He had 7 touchdowns, 171 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then you look at Brian Thomas Jr. He went over 1,000 yards a while ago, and he's looking like a top five receiver in the NFL currently. And then there's also Lad McConkey, who's had amazing production with Justin Herbert. I feel like this is one of the better receiving classes in recent history. Looking back, 2014 is probably the closest we've seen to this, and to have four guys go over 1,000 yards, and there's plenty of other receivers making plays. Roma Dunze, Adonai Mitchell will in the next few years come into his own role, but I feel like this is one of the better classes we've seen in recent history.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you forgot the first guy, Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think this is definitely the best receiver class we've seen in a while. We're seeing production from guys all the way into the second round. And I can't point my finger at a class that even comes close to it necessarily. Like maybe the Jefferson class, but I don't know. I think this year is the best. And I think this year's running back, the 2025 running back class, I think is going to be very similar. It's going to compete with 2017 for the best running back class that we've seen in a while. Now we're on to the part where we talk about our favorite teams. The Steelers are in a little bit of a skid since the last podcast episode, dropping 3 games in a row. To be fair to three of the best teams in the league, but um, it's just a mixture of our defense is stale. Tomlin's supposed to be this defensive mastermind. He's bailed by his best players making good plays against the worst teams. Like the Steelers are a good defense against the bottom 70% of the league, but once you play an actual offense, they just crumble. I mean, Terrell Austin, worst defensive coordinator in the league. He sits in his dumb cover two system the entire game and doesn't make any adjustments when we let Brian Flores walk right out the door, who is now in Minnesota leading the Vikings on a 14-2 season. It comes down to Tomlin not letting anyone be smarter than him in the system because he's so scared that anyone's actually going to challenge him for his head coaching job, even though he has this dumb little streak where he's won 10 games for the past like bazillion years since before I was born, and but haven't won a playoff game since I was in first grade. So yeah, as you can tell, a little geeked about the Steelers, but I do think playing the Texans on the road in the first round is the best case scenario, and it does look like the most likely if we beat the Bengals this week. And you look at the Texans, they're a struggling team. CJ Stroud is having major accuracy issues. I would prefer to play them over anyone except maybe the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos are very good. Um, maybe the Steelers win a playoff game this year. I'm never gonna get my hopes up because I'm so done with this team.
Yep. See, the emotions just flow whenever you talk about the Steelers, up and down every year. You know, you're looking amazing. Then drop three straight to three of the best teams in football, and now the fans are geeked. George Pickens is going to start more fights. First round exit for like the fifth year in a row, and then it's time to talk about my team. As you can see, big Saints fan here. I wish I wasn't, to tell you the truth. Bad decision by me, but I'm going to stick with it. We're not a bandwagon here, but for now, just call me an NFL fan. Just bouncing around the teams that are likable and not named the Chiefs, because who likes the Chiefs, to be honest. But a little more about the Saints. It's been a bad season. It starts with the injuries and the coaching. I mean, Darren Rizzi, he's a good interim, but he's not the long term succeeder at head coach. Not to say succeeder. No one's. I think the first coach that comes in is going to do better than Dennis Allen ever did the second he comes in. And quarterback Spencer Rattler and Jay Kaner, those are not very good options. And Spencer Rattler is the first ever fifth round bust, I feel like. He has just looked awful out there. I was a big believer of him. I thought he was a great pick, and it turns out he's not. So, what I want to see from the Saints going forward is I want a big loss to Tampa Bay. I want to humiliate that locker room, lose by as much as possible, and make all the old guys retire, clear the house, and then win 0 games next year. And then, not sure if next year's Arch Manning's class. I think it's the year after
Yes.
that. Next year's his.
Yeah.
All right, so I want Arch Manning to come to the Saints, follow in his grandfather's footsteps. Well, I don't know if he's his grandfather. I don't know what Archie Manning is to Arch Manning, but follow in his footsteps and lead us to the promised land that we haven't been since 2017 and 2019 when Drew Brees was leading these teams. And I wasn't a fan back then. I joined after Drew Brees retired, and worst mistake in human history, I feel like. And we're going
Yeah.
to move on to just the draft in general now. And Giants had a great game. And guess what that did? They had the number one pick. Now they have the number three pick, I believe. I'll pull up the draft order right here. But right now it's New England sitting at one, Tennessee, Cleveland, New York, Jacksonville, Carolina, New York, and then Vegas. And Vegas was at number one a couple weeks ago, but two straight wins have tanked them out of there. But as you said earlier, you can go in more detail about this, but you said you don't think this quarterback class is as good as the media is hyping it up to be.
Yeah, I this is going to be one of my hot takes. I think we're going to see something similar to the Kenny Pickett 2022 class with these quarterbacks. I don't think they're that good. I think if any other year you're looking at Shador Sanders and Cam Ward as the third, fourth, fifth best guys in the class. And I just think I mean they might turn out to be good players, but I don't think they will. And I think NFL teams realize that and we could see a fall similar to how, Kenny Pickett was the only first round guy and then the rest of them fell, even though pre-draft, like Kenny Pickett and Malik Willis were both projected near the top 10, even in the top 10 in some. I saw him as far as number two to the Lions in one of the mock drafts closer to the draft. You can
Who
fact check
was
that if you don't believe me.
Kenny
I'm
Pickett?
100% on that one. And even seeing guys like Sam Howell, Matt Corral, Desmond Ritter like sneak into the back end of the draft. And then on draft night, they just kept falling. And I think that's what's similar going to happen here. I think teams are going to realize if they wait till next year, you've got guys like my favorite quarterback ever, Drew Aller. I think he's going to be great. He's like the next Josh Allen, in my opinion. Arch Manning, other guys. I think next year is the year you go after a quarterback if you're a team like the Saints or the Giants. And I mean, speaking of the Giants, Drew Lock played great.
He was locked in.
He did not want Shedeur Sanders to take his
No.
job. So that's something else. But I think this year, if you're a team with a top pick, what I would do if I was a GM, trade back. But if there's no good trade back, because the other GMs realize that too, I would take one of the guys like Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, or Will Campbell, depending
Yeah,
on my needs.
definitely the other positions are a lot stronger in this draft, but as we've said together, it's not a very good draft class as outside of the running back and early defenders. And we all saw Shedeur Sanders in the Alamo Bowl. He wore the New York Giants cleats and went out to put up a stinker against the BYU Cougars. Travis Hunter didn't have a good game, so that lowered his stock. And we also saw Cam Ward, a whole controversy around him. He took himself out of the game at halftime of his bowl game, and the media has not had a very good reaction to that. And it's sparked a lot of backlash. And maybe that's why the Raiders and Giants won. They do not want to fall in, they don't want those quarterbacks. I mean, probably not it, but that could be a reason.
Yeah, definitely something interesting. it's that's we know that's not why they won. You know, you're not gonna convince a locker room of 53 NFL players who are fighting for their dream to purposely lose a game just so some hotshot rookie can come show them up next year. Obviously the players are gonna fight till the end, but it's definitely something interesting to see the Giants drop from 1 to 4 when their roster is not ready to compete. Um, Moving on, we've got my favorite topic, Kenny
Kenny
Pickett
Pickett.
legacy game on the Eagles in the Kelly green jerseys, long sleeves and a flak jacket when it's 65 and sunny out. Who has better drip than the kid from Ocean, New Jersey, Kenny Pickett? Um, Division on the line, chance to clinch, and Kenny Pickett comes in 150 yards doesn't seem like that much, but he was making every throw he needed to. He has Saquon on his side, 2 touchdowns, and he even got a sack. He sacked himself in the greatest play of all time. What I like to call it the Kenny Pickett skits throw, because he didn't even like literally physics defying to throw the ball, hold on to the ball because he's known for notoriously having small hands, 8.5 inches, because I know that. I'm a Kenny Pickett enthusiast.
Six
Um,
foot three, 225 pounds.
yeah, and just like completely somersault yourself into the ground. I don't know how he did it. It's actually impressive. I don't know what he was thinking or what he saw. Maybe the only explanation is he was going to throw him downfield and at the last second realized it was going to be intercepted, so he just held on to the ball instead of throwing it, which maybe is smart, but it's still a pretty funny highlight. But people will point at that and laugh, but he played a great game. He did get knocked out of the game in what was it, the third quarter maybe after taking a rough hit from Parsons, and Tanner McKee came in through 2 touchdowns. But we don't like Tanner McKee.
We
He's a
don't need
random.
Kenny.
Kenny Pickett is the future of the Eagles. I don't want to hear nothing about overpaid Jalen Hurts. Kenny Pickett is the future.
Kenny Pickett with his huge frame, he can do the tush push. Jalen Hurts he's a fraud. Kenny Pickett, they should start him. You know what? Hurts, his concussion's a little too serious. How about he sits the entire playoffs? Let Kenny Pickett take him to the bowl. And
Foles type run from Kenny Pickett.
Another Eagles topic here is Saquon Barkley. I think he's 101 yards away from breaking the single season rushing record. But the question is he going to play? The Eagles already locked up their division. Do you think he's going to play? I feel like he's going to play. They got him 31 carries last week. They want this record.
Yeah. I think, you know, when you look at a guy like Saquon and how much it would mean to him to break the record against his former team that treated him like that, I know stats don't matter in NFL teams, but that's like just like a 1,000 yards kind of stat. When you have a chance to break an all-time record that has stood since Eric Dickerson, 1984, I think. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if that's right. Um, this is like career defining stuff. Like you only get the chance to do this once in a lifetime. I don't see him passing up. And the Eagles are a deep team. They know that. If Saquon for some reason gets hurt, I still think they'll be able to make a run without him. It won't be as easy, but I don't see a world where they don't go for this against his former team. They have to.
There's no way they don't. Like I said,
Yeah.
they gave him Ashton Genty level carries, 31. And we're going to move on to our next topic, which is the Bucks and the Falcons competing for the South. I'm going to put it simple and straightforward. The Bucks are going to win the South. They play the Saints, easy. Pretty much just it's going to be a guaranteed win. Last game they played the Saints, they hung 56 on them. That's going to happen again. And the Falcons don't even stand a chance. Like they have to win and the Bucks to lose. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. The Bucks need to lose to the Saints, and it all comes down to the Sunday night game where Riley Patterson, as an NFL kicker, he had it on the money, and that maybe would have been good from 45. That's embarrassing that you can't even come close to a 56-yard field goal. I know I couldn't do it, but I'm not getting paid millions of dollars to kick a football. If I was getting paid millions of dollars, trained every day for this one task, I think I could do it. Like that's just embarrassing that he missed by that much. And I think that's what's going to cost them the division and a playoff spot because the NFC wild card is too competitive. The Commanders are going to take that last wild card spot, and then
I think
the
they
other
already
two
locked that
NFC North,
up.
yeah, the NFC North teams, the Vikings and the Packers are going to take it, or maybe the Lions, depending what happens next week on Sunday Night Football between the Vikings and the Lions. It all comes down to that game. If they won that game on Sunday night, they'd be looking really good right now. But they aren't, and that's unfortunate for them.
Yeah, they also have they have a 2-0 tiebreaker against Tampa Bay. So if they were to just make that kick and then say Tampa Bay and Atlanta both win, Atlanta takes it because of that tiebreaker. So that kick is just it's season ending for them.
Yeah, that's definitely devastating. That's why I'm thankful for my guy Chris Boswell, the
Blink
Wizard
for
of
me.
Boz. Um, Moving on, we're looking at the AFC playoff picture. This has gotten very interesting recently. Um, for a while, everyone thought the teams were locked in. We had the seven teams, the three wild card being the Steelers, Chargers, and Broncos. But after the Bengals beat the Broncos on overtime last night, it's gotten pretty interesting. The Bengals to get in would need a win and a Denver and Miami loss. So Bengals don't have they don't control their destiny. The only team that controls their destiny right now is the Broncos. They just need a win over the Chiefs, who are resting their starters. So I do think the Broncos are still going to be the team that gets in. But in the scenario that the Broncos lose, the Dolphins would be next. Then the Dolphins would control their destiny because all they need is a Denver loss and then they need to win. But the only way for the Bengals to make it is for both Denver and Miami to lose. But I just don't see Denver losing to Kansas City's backups. I mean,
No,
what do
and
you think?
Miami plays the Jets, so it's just not
Yeah.
going to happen for the Bengals because you're playing
No
40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. And it's going to be the Broncos most likely, unless Carson Wentz has an insane legacy game. Well, we've seen it with Kenny Pickett. Why can't we see it with Carson Wentz? All right,
Yeah.
we're going to move on to our. Or do you have something else?
No, no.
All right, we're going to get on to our other topics here. There's a big game coming up today. It is the Fiesta Bowl. It is Penn State versus Boise State. I've seen a lot around the media. People are saying Penn State's going to win this game big. It's not going to happen. Boise's going to win by a touchdown. When I'm looking at the rosters, obviously you have Genty. He's going to go crazy. We saw him against the number one team, hung 3 touchdowns, 200 yards on them. But people are underestimating this Boise team. It's not just Genty. They got Maddox Madsen. He's a good quarterback. He keeps it out of harm's way. And him versus Drew Aller is a closer quarterback comparison than most people think. I know Aller's got the big arm. He's that first round talent type of guy. When you got a guy like Maddox Madsen just plays the game right, a locker room guy, the glue guy, it's going to be a closer game than people
Anyone we see out of a guy like Patrick Mahomes, Jim.
well, a guy like Maddox Madsen, pretty sure he's a Mormon. So
There
he's
we
a
go.
good boy from Utah. He's going to lead Boise State to a big Fiesta Bowl win, and then look out, they're going to play someone. They're going to win the national championship this year.
Yeah, I agree. Penn State is a 12 and a half point favorite right now. I don't see it at all. I think when you looked at Penn State versus SMU, Penn State blew them out, I know, but like if you really watch the game, it came in the beginning, SMU was controlling it, and it came down to like a couple missed throws and interceptions. I
Two
think,
pick sixes.
yeah, if Boise State plays conservatively and they play the game they want to and establish the run early, I really could see Boise State winning this game. I don't know why they're plus 12 and a half. That almost seems like a lock to me.
Yeah, I don't see that at all. That's not a very good spread there. And the other
Yeah.
college football playoff game, isn't it? Arizona State versus Texas, is it? I think I'm
Yeah,
tweaking.
that's what it is. Because
Yeah,
Cam Scatabo was
Cam,
calling out Texas.
was he calling them out?
Pretty sure.
Yeah, that game, I feel like Texas is just going to win that one pretty easily. I mean,
Yeah.
Arizona State, they're a good. They'll make some plays, but will they have enough is the question. Like, I don't know too much about Arizona State in college football. I only know about Scatabo. And then on the
Yeah.
other side, it's Oregon. Is it Oregon, Georgia?
Oregon, Ohio State in the Rose Bowl at 5 p.m. Oregon is plus 2.5, surprisingly. I think Oregon's going to take that. They're 13-0 for a reason. Jeremiah Smith was saying how the OPI against Oregon still keeps them up at night the first time they met. But I do think Oregon will take this, and I wonder why they're plus 2.5. Arizona State is also plus 12.5, but I think Texas covers that. And then the Sugar Bowl later that night, Notre Dame versus Georgia.
Oh,
Georgia's
good game.
-1. I like Georgia in that. I just don't think Notre Dame's cut out.
Notre Dame's got the defense, but like it's Gunnar Stockton going against them. It's not their starter, which is Carson Beck, so it doesn't make too much of a difference. But Gunnar Stockton versus that Notre Dame defense, we haven't seen too much of Stockton, so I don't know how that's going to play out. But Georgia's offense is just, I feel like, too good. And Notre Dame, they have a great defense, but they're going to let up some big plays. That game, they did pretty good with the spread on that one. I feel like that's going to be a close game, but I do see Georgia winning that one also.
Yeah, me too. It'll be fun though. I like the expanded college football playoffs, and I think some of these games will be entertaining.
Yeah, that's pretty much all the topics I think we got. You got anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for listening or watching, tuning in, whatever you guys may be doing. Make sure to follow our Instagram to see our stuff. We're going to be posting, like we said at the start of the episode, mock draft Mondays, hot take Tuesdays, and our locks and dogs of the week. We'll have those out for you on Thursday. And with that, we hope everybody has a great new year, and we'll see you in the next episode.